Hi everybody, I'm Hillary, if you don't know, aka Hills Alive. I'm back here with another reaction video. Today I'm going to be reacting to Season 1, Episode 2 of House of the Dragon, The Rogue Prince. The prop design here is sick. I love it. Oh. Oh! Kragus Crabfeeder is the villain's name, in case you were wondering.
4 ships have now been lost. The last one was flying my banner.
I mean, he is being a little too overly aggro, but also he is kind of right. Like, attacking a ship flying the banner of a Westerosi lord, noble, whatever, is kind of like borderline a declaration of war, I would think.
I want to seize that the king's own brother has been allowed to seize Dragonstone and fortify it with an army of his gold cloaks. Daemon has squatted there for over half a year without even a protest from the crown.
I'll caution you, Lord Corliss.
I do have to say too, I know Steve Toussaint is definitely like one of my favorite actors in the show so far. And having to read out these exposition dumps where it's basically a character explaining what's happening in the story in their own dialogue is very difficult, because obviously it's kind of an unnatural way to speak, but he really kind of slayed the delivery of those lines there.
You have dragon riders, father. Send us. I only meant that we should at least...
Perhaps there's some better use for the princess's talents, Your Grace.
Why don't you take the princess to see about the new King's Guard posting, Lord Commander?
A fine idea, Your Grace.
This knight will protect you as well. You should choose.
Again, I feel like this is obviously a pretty subtle inclusion into the storyline at large, but like the fact that Viserys doesn't actually explain to her why sending a bunch of dragons to basically threaten people into submission isn't a good idea goes to show A, that he's not concerned about training Rhaenyra for political, for her political future in general. And yeah, it basically just shows that he, didn't concern himself with actually training her politically to be his heir, and how to handle things diplomatically. So that obviously contributes to what happens later on in the Dance of the Dragons.
I choose Sir Criston Cole.
Let's not be too hasty, Princess. There's no doubt Sir Criston is a fine warrior, but houses such as Crickle and Alistair are important allies of the crown. Seaguard, for instance, is the realm's prime defense against reavers from the Iron Islands.
Those men are tawny knights. My father should be defended by a man who's known real combat. Should he not?
Of course, Princess.
Well, let us plan Sir Criston's investiture then.
She does not like being told what to do, especially by him. But again, he's not wrong about choosing someone who is a solid ally to the crown. And it's worth mentioning that those are basically lifetime appointments, so, you know, considering it beyond a 5-minute or 2-second conversation may have been worthwhile, especially given what happens in the future with Criston Cole and Rhaenyra.
I only pore over the histories and provide the plans. The glory of old Valyria will never be seen again.
The glory.
7 Hills.
He didn't choose me, he spurned Daemon.
Again, not wrong. Interesting kind of like ladder theming on Alicent's dress. I wonder if that's actually supposed to represent the fact that she is kind of climbing the political ladder in this episode.
What do I say? Whatever you wish. It's only for you and the gods to know.
Again, another interesting insight into the way Rhaenyra was obviously raised. Obviously, she's more into her Valyrian side, but the fact that she is potentially going to become the queen of Westeros and doesn't know how to pray and accept, again, is an interesting view into what has or hasn't been done in Rhaenyra's raising to prepare her to actually lead Westeros and ingratiate her into Westerosi culture.
Mine own father does not know the language of girls either.
I know tempers ran hot today, but I wanted to assure you how much I value the bond between our houses.
It is valuable.
I wish to apologize.
Today at small council,
Paid no mind.
I thought I might have had some insight.
You're young.
But
You will learn.
Well, now's the time for her to learn, bro. Ew. I know this actually works, but ew.
This is our best chance to save the digit, Your Grace. The maggots will remove the dead flesh and hopefully stop the advance of the rot. A match with their daughter would go a long way towards sealing the breach. And uniting the two great Valyrian houses would certainly signal unity throughout the realm and beyond.
Which is like so weird. I understand that obviously the Targaryens have taken over Westeros, but the idea that uniting two Valyrian houses will somehow be symbolic of Westeros's thriving future is very strange.
Your Grace, it would be a great honor to join our houses as they were in Old Valyria. I would give you many children of pure Valyrian blood so that we might strengthen the royal line and the realm.
What your father told you to say.
What do you think? Yeah, she came up with it by herself.
What did your mother tell you?
That I wouldn't have to bed you until I turned 14.
Dear God.
When that boy comes of age and your father has passed, the men of the realm will expect him to be heir, not you. Because that is the order of things.
Unfortunately, she is correct.
when I'm queen, I will create a new order.
But the men of the realm already had their opportunity to appoint a ruling queen at the Great Council, and they denied it.
They denied you, Princess Rhaenys. The queen who never was.
Rude.
But they bent
Very
their knee
rude.
to me
Oh my God.
and to the throne.
Do you remind your father's men of that as you carry their cups? Men would sooner put the realm to the torch than see a woman ascend the Iron Throne.
She is unfortunately probably right.
And your father is no fool.
Don't think she's right about that, though.
A very strong match, Your Grace.
I must admit, I don't know Lena very well.
Why would you know a 12-year-old girl very well?
Company, as I have, Your Grace.
Of Dragonstone. Her Grace is with child, and is to have a dragon's egg placed in the babe's cradle, in the custom of House Targaryen.
I don't know if Fire and Blood specified that that was a Targaryen tradition, but I'd like that they specified that here because it makes the whole development of Alicent's children versus Rhaenyra's children more interesting.
This is nothing less than sedition. I strongly agree.
What would you have me do? Send him to the wall?
Yeah, that's a good idea.
So I could put his head on a spike.
That's an even better idea.
With an army of gold cloaks and has now stolen a dangerous... My apologies, Your Grace, but I cannot allow it. It's too dangerous. Daemon is without limit.
Say what you want about Otto, but he is not a coward. He definitely faces down the people that he rivals, even though he's oftentimes completely out of his depth and unable to defend himself. He's already running errands for Alicent. Don't you love it? Oh, I actually love this version of Dragonstone that they have in House of the Dragon. Like, the Game of Thrones one was okay, but in terms of the actual description of Dragonstone, it's very much like this, very, like, murky and humid and gross, but, like, appealing to dragons.
Sir Kristen, wasn't it?
Sir Kristen Cole, my prince.
Ah, yes, apologies. I couldn't recall.
Because he hit you so hard?
Prince recalls when I knocked him off the course.
Very good.
This is a truly pathetic show, Damon. Are you so desperate for the king's attention that you've resorted to skulking about like a common cutpurse?
I'm simply keeping with the traditions of my house, the same as my brother did for his heir.
Those traditions are for the true-born children of royalty, not for bastards fathered on a common whore.
Lady Messiah is to be my
Kind
wife.
of
This
rude,
is an
bro.
abomination. With every breath you soil your name, your house, and your brother's... To choose violence here is to declare war against your king.
Wonderful.
Even if it ends in the death of your unborn child and its mother.
Limbs is fighting words. What's wrong with his eyes? I can't deal with Caraxes and his weird lizardy body.
All of you, sheathe the fucking spear.
He said the F word. The cloud CGI was cool.
I'm right here, Uncle. The object of your ire. The reason that you were disinherited.
The reason he was disinherited is because he's freaking out of his mind.
You'll need to kill me.
Don't smile at him. Ugh. Dragonstone is looking raggedy.
I ensured long ago that I would never be threatened by childbirth.
Good. Children can be such irritating creatures.
You
She comes from unimpeachable Valyrian stock, and she has Targaryen blood. What's to mislike?
She is 12.
She will mature.
Yeah, and this dude is sitting here rotting alive. He doesn't have time to wait for somebody to mature.
As king, you have a claim on all things.
Your mother's absence is a wound that will never heal.
Interesting line about him, a wound that will never heal, given that he has so many wounds that will never heal.
And by marrying again, I may begin to ensure that
Sure.
we're better defended.
That's exactly how it's gonna
Whomever
work.
may dare to challenge us. To take a new wife.
I don't know why you're sitting up when Alicent is the only woman in the room. Besides Rhaenyra.
My house is Valerian, the greatest power in the realm.
And I am your king.
And the High Towers have ruled Old Town for like 10,000 years. You got played, son. Oh, my poor baby.
Rhaenyra.
Like, bro, you should have given her a heads up before announcing it to everybody. Come on.
Unlike every other lord of the realm, I can say that I built my house's high seat with the strength of mine own back.
Is that true? Like, did he actually build House Valerian up until the most powerful, one of the most powerful houses in Westeros? Like, I feel like it had to have happened before him, right? I have to look that up.
Did you call me to Driftmark to remind me of my low standing, Lord Cornwall? Or is there some other reason?
You're low standing. Like, yeah. No one can understand the struggle that the two of you have faced. Two of the most powerful men in the entire world.
Some Mirish prince is feeding Westerosi sailors to the crabs.
I really wish they had done more with this, with Crag as Crab Feeder. I thought he was a really great villain.
My brother's strongest trait.
What?
Being king.
The crab feeder is backed by powerful...
Okay, so that was the second episode of House of the Dragon. Overall, I felt like it was a somewhat solid episode. I think that they probably could have done something a little bit better or more compelling for a second episode. Given that you're still trying to draw the audience in, this felt very pedestrian, kind of more conflicts between families and individual people. I think it might have been more impactful if they had started with something a little more intense. But obviously this lays a lot of groundwork for what's going to happen in the future. And I thought that there were some really good, subtle character building and story building elements that may have been too subtle. They're developments that are easier to see when you're looking back in retrospect or when you're aware of what's going to come. Seeing the way Viserys acts or he fails to act is a good indication of why things devolve in the way that they do. The fact that Daemon is completely wild and out and he just kind of lets him do whatever and has to be pushed into doing something to handle that problem, again, seems to be very representative and in line with the decisions that he makes aside from that. The decisions that he makes in the future that sort of build towards the Dance of the Dragons in a way that he doesn't seem to recognize. I thought that the scenes between Rhaenyra and Otto were really interesting too. I also thought that they were pretty subtle, but built up towards that push and pull between them. In that Otto really does know what he's talking about when it comes to politics. Aside from the fact that he's obviously working in his own favor, he does generally give the Targaryens very solid advice. I think that he obviously rubs Rhaenyra in the wrong way, in the same way that he rubs Daemon the wrong way. That they feel like he's overstepping, and because they are Targaryens, they should take precedence over what Otto is saying. And, you know, obviously they have enough power to do that. They have enough power to just decide what they want to do for themselves. But that doesn't mean that Otto is wrong. And obviously that kind of Targaryen exceptionalism doesn't serve them or the Targaryens in general very well over the course of their reign in Westeros. Obviously, the proposition that Laena should marry Viserys was very gross and was intended to be gross. But I feel like that's kind of a weird... It just sort of rubbed me the wrong way in the sense that, like, okay, well, Alicent is the same age as his own daughter. She's a few years older than Laena. And we're sort of, you know, supposed to look at Viserys slightly more kindly because at least he is kind of grossed out by the idea of marrying a 12-year-old. But he's not grossed out by the idea of marrying a 15-year-old. And he doesn't ever question the idea that, you know, maybe this 15-year-old girl actually isn't into him, doesn't like him in the way that he thinks that she does. I thought the insights into Rhaenys' character were really interesting too. The way that she was kind of resigned to the idea that men will never let women hold real power in Westeros is an interesting one. I mean, it's certainly interesting given where her character goes in the future. And I was just surprised that that was kind of such a... I mean, understandably, it would be a crushing blow if you have the right to claim the throne that is taken away from you in favor of a man because another man decides it. But the fact that that just kind of... that the events of the Great Council seemingly define her worldview going forward was an interesting facet of her character. Again, I feel like they reiterated the kind of character archetypes of Rhaenyra being like the rebellious one who does what she wants impulsively versus Alicent just being the one who does whatever she's told. Obviously, Otto is pushing her towards Viserys, and she doesn't seem to be that into it, but because she is being told to, she does it. Which obviously is meant to contrast with the fact that Rhaenyra goes to Dragonstone by herself without her father's permission and does what she wants before he even knows that she's gone. I also think that there's kind of an interesting subtext there in the sort of Targaryen versus Hightower factions that, like, obviously Daemon and Rhaenyra ultimately become a team together, and Otto and Alicent become a team with all of Alicent's children. And the Hightowers are largely the type to follow the rules, but they also use the rules and use tradition or societal expectation to their own advantage. Whereas Daemon and Rhaenyra are very kind of removed from Westerosi society as a whole and don't seem to have a lot of respect for Westerosi culture or, they consider themselves to be apart from the rest of Westeros. So seeing that build up and knowing how that's going to unfold in the future, I feel like that's a good those are good building blocks between the different characters that I think really adequately explains why they become rivals in the future. I thought that line that was kind of a throwaway from Mysaria was actually really interesting too, and I wish they had explained it more beyond her saying that she had done something to make sure that she would never ever have children. Like, what is that? What did she do? Explain that more. Again, interesting introduction into Lionel Strong. Obviously, he's going to play a bigger part in the storyline going forward. Again, interesting that Lionel really did kind of give Viserys good advice that Viserys ultimately didn't take. Again, I feel like this is a really good glimpse into how Viserys kind of single-handedly built the foundation of the Dance of the Dragons, even if he didn't know it or understand or really care. Because he's obviously getting solid advice that is true, that ultimately Lord Corlys is going to take great offense if Viserys chooses to marry somebody else. But he chooses to marry somebody else anyway, because he is following his heart rather than what he thinks is politically, or what he's being told is politically advantageous. Once again, with the issue of the succession and with the issue of, Rhaenyra's claim pretty much was always guaranteed to be challenged by someone, because that is just how it works in Westeros. This has happened many times before, where women who had much better claims than Rhaenyra did had their claims challenged and oftentimes lost their claims, or, some sort of power upheaval did happen as a result of that challenge. So Viserys' complete ignorance in telling Rhaenyra that she's going to be that she's still going to be the heir, but that they need to solidify their line because it's too easy to extinguish, obviously is supposed to be incredibly ironic given what ultimately winds up happening, the conflict that happens between Rhaenyra and Viserys' other children. But again, ultimately, even though Rhaenys' statement towards, Rhaenys and Rhaenyra were both really rude to each other, so unnecessarily. But what Rhaenys said was true, that if Viserys had a son, it would be the expectation of everyone in the realm that his son would ultimately take the throne. And Rhaenyra is not an exception of that, even though that she thinks that she does. And again, this kind of comes back to the issue of Targaryen exceptionalism, of raising all of these people believing that they are somehow better than human, and therefore the normal rules don't apply. Like, if they had just been integrated into Westerosi society in a more seamless way, and if Rhaenyra had understood that, if all of the Targaryens didn't think that they were the most special person to ever live, that really would have helped, everything in the world forever. Their constant beliefs that they are the exceptions to the rules has a devastating impact on their power and ultimately their family. So yeah, I think that is pretty much my thoughts on episode 2 of House of the Dragon, season 1, episode 2, The Rogue Prince. So tell me what you think in the comments below, and if you're interested in more content like this, like and subscribe.